Welcome to B-Sides Live, a podcast for music lovers by music lovers. I'm Dan Baxter, and on today's episode, much like the Beatles did in 1970, I decided to kind of fly solo to take you through the moment in time just after the Get Back sessions, where the Beatles have broken up. They're all in their solo careers, and they're all kind of writing songs about each other, so stay tuned. We record these live on Zoom where I spin directly from my turntable to your speakers. But if you want to follow along, the full playlist is linked in the description below. Otherwise, check out the calendar, which is also linked below, to see if you can make it to the next one. We got tons of events coming up, and I would love to see you there. Subscribe if you like. We'd love to have you. Otherwise, enjoy the episode. Tonight is the last in this kind of month-long series of shows called B-Sides and Beatles. And today's episode is called Post-Beatles. So this is really kind of going to be, I'm going to be playing through a lot of songs that were kind of written by the different members of the Beatles about the breakup of the band and kind of their feelings toward each other throughout the years, but mainly kind of focused around the breakup and the whole mess. There's plenty to go through. But I just want to say, I don't know how many of you have seen any of the Get Back documentary. Please pop it in the chat. Let me know what your thoughts, where you are. I'm not going to be spoiling anything. Obviously, we all kind of know the general story. I'm just going to be talking a little bit after that time period. So I'm going to start tonight with. So I thought the documentary might provide a little more insight than I had, but I'm going to record, to my knowledge, what I think is the last song recorded by the Beatles, although John was not present. This was kind of like the last bit of recording here, and this is I Me Mine, which is a song about ego, and it kind of sets up where the story goes from here. But cheers, everybody. Thanks for joining. Happy Saturday, and let's have some fun here. I do want to say a lot of sad songs tonight. Just a bit of a heads up, but it's still fun. We'll enjoy. So thanks for being here. This is so. I mean, it's clearly a song George wrote during kind of all of this fighting about whose songs are whose and what parts for certain people to play. And it's very interesting that that John wasn't present during the recording of at least the version that ended up on the album. It's just a bit of interesting thing there. So they record all these songs and the band decides to kind of go their own ways, and McCartney has a solo album kind of set, and once the Beatles have kind of actually broken up and signed the papers and all that, McCartney is his album date has been set for a while, but the Beatles decide Let It Be is going to come out around the same time, which it's a bit of a competing album. Is McCartney's first solo album, and Let It Be, the Beatles' last. So the John and George write a letter, which they have Ringo hand deliver to Paul, which basically says, you can't release your album now because we're going to release this and it's going to earn all of us money instead of just you. And he basically says, fuck off, and releases it anyway. But there's certain songs, kind of all throughout all of these Beatles solo albums that are about each other, but I'm kind of focusing in on a few. So the one I want to focus in on from that first McCartney album is Man, We Was Lonely. So let's just that song Paul McCartney kind of wrote when he was in his big depression coming out of the breakup of the Beatles. Kind of talks about again fighting about whose song is whose and stuff. Fun fact about that is actually the first song that Linda sang backup vocals on for Paul. She did a lot actually on this album with him, and it kind of hints at where Paul's career was going. So even though he was a bit depressed and stuff, it's still upbeat, good old upbeat Paul. And John, on the other hand, it really, on his first solo album, tries to distance himself from the Beatles as much as possible. and I'm gonna play a couple here, and I have lyrics here for this first one. Dream is over. Absolutely, absolutely a heartbreaking song. And very clear about his his point of view. He calls out, you know, going back to the ego thing. It's a song about idols, and he's saying he doesn't believe in any of these idols, any of these world idols, and specifically any of these idols that mean anything to his friends in the Beatles or the Beatles themselves. It's just absolutely fascinating. Again, showing where his solo career would go. And then the next song I want to play from this album is there's some debate. Some people think parts of it are about Paul, but a lot of it is about it's just kind of another direct message to specifically Beatles fans who were kind of crazy about him and, kind of buying into him as an idol. Let's just move on to I Found Out. A little mention of Hari Krishna in there, a couple of digs at George, although not too bad. It's more of a just general Beatles dig. But he also there's the line "I've seen religion from Jesus to Paul," which is super fascinating. Just again, probably one of the most direct call outs so far. So Paul McCartney's working on another album, and he himself starts to take kind of a more direct approach, and we get the first kind of Paul McCartney diss track, "Too Many People" from Ram. And if you've seen Get Back, even if you've seen clips or like some of the first episode, even the song takes on a whole other meaning because you can really see where there could be too many people and too many voices speaking. So I've got lyrics for this one too. But again, this is kind of about that same time period of the Beatles breakup. A lot of these songs, like, even though they come out much later, they're written about this time or during this time. So you'll see. Here's Too Many People from Ram. So I'm actually going to play a couple here from Ram. All right, so a couple lines in there. "When I thought you was my friend," that kind of definitely relates to the Beatles breakup there. And there's a little something there about "my dog has three legs, your dog he's got none." Might be a little dig at how much talent he thought he had over the Beatles, the other Beatles. The next one is. We'll get into it, but it is what is most likely the most direct reference to John on this album. But it could also be potentially about an ex-lover of Linda's. But that's the thing with Paul, like, he kind of left it a little abstract, So here is "Dear Boy." So, like I said, there's some debate. People think it's written to one of Linda's ex-lovers, but I believe in an interview, John Lennon said that he thought the song was about him. So I feel like someone that close to Paul McCartney might know how the dude writes songs. So that's interesting there. But again, it's abstract. He leaves it up to your imagination. And John Lennon is still just, if he wasn't clear before, he's going to make it as clear as possible, clear as day, just get the statement out there. He really does not like Paul McCartney. Super direct. Very, very harsh. Seems a bit harsh, but at the time, Paul was really, he was trying to dissolve Apple Corp. So the corporation they had built up for themselves, Paul was trying to kind of dissolve it, and they were deciding who owned what, and all of the Beatles were kind of going through legal battles. So a lot of people were kind of upset at Paul. But interestingly enough, George is actually his solos on that song, and a couple of interesting lines. "The only thing you'd done was yesterday," Paul song, "and since you've gone, you're just another day," which I believe is another Paul McCartney song. And those, I think, those couple of lines were suggested by John Lennon's manager Alan Klein, who sucks, kind of. So Paul has a direct response to this song, actually, but again, still a bit abstract. So this is from the Wings album Wildlife, and this is Some People Never Know. If I had time to put the lyrics on for every single one of these songs, I totally would have. So if any of you have any of these albums, feel free to follow along or look up the lyrics as you go, because it's really interesting. I try to kind of call out the most interesting ones, but again, yeah, that Paul has some lines literally answering how he sleeps at night, or in his own way. Um, Another song on this album, Paul kind of goes back to the kind of direct message route. So here he is, uh, through Wings, speaking directly to John. Uh, you know, very clear, very clear. It's directly, focused at John. I'm a little unsure on the exact timeline, but this same year, John kind of, also has an apology song to Paul. So this is another one directed at Paul. Actually, on that same album. Now that I think about it, that's interesting. It's on the same. It's on Imagine. It's on the same album as How Do You Sleep. So maybe he just felt bad about writing that song. So here is Jealous Guy. Caleb, I'm in the same boat with you. I didn't know that was about Paul either until looking this up. I always assumed it was that's something else. I don't know. I just never. I thought he tried to distance himself from the Beatles as much as possible, but um, yeah, like a lover or something. Yeah. Eventually they made up and still kind of did their own things, and um, but the kind of like shooting songs at each other really kind of stopped. There's one more I want to play, mainly because there's been a lot of sad stuff, and this one kind of fits into the section. So, much later in the 70s, and I promise you, I know there are two other Beatles. We'll get to them. But I'm going to play one more song from Wings, Paul McCartney. This is a bit later. This is from 1976. And this is kind of a response to something John Lennon said in an interview. And critics at the time were just saying that Paul McCartney, all he wrote was silly love songs. Or is it? Is it a love song? Or is it a song about love songs? Anyway, back to the sad shit. In 1970, after the Beatles broke up, each of them kind of had their chance to kind of do their, well, Ringo a little bit later. But they all kind of had their chance to do their own thing. And one of the big contentions in the Let It Be sessions was George, kind of getting forced to do songs, or forced to do things on songs that weren't really him. Not all of his songs were getting picked. And basically, throughout his whole Beatles career, he built up a catalog of songs that he could just dump onto a huge album. All Things Must Pass. So it is probably what I would say. I think it's at least my favorite solo Beatles album. Maybe Ram. Maybe it's up there. But just as a statement, it's a huge one. And I'm going to play a few from this, but we're going to start with one that is about, it was written during and about the decaying relationship of the Beatles. Here is, Isn't It a Pity? I think an entire show could be done on this album alone. There's so much to dive into, and really, I tried to pick some of the best songs for this specific thing, but these are not definitely the best songs on the album. One interesting one though is this next one. This next song, if you have seen any of Get Back, this happens at the like immediately after part one. So once George has had his little spat with Paul about playing guitar on Let It Be, he has decided to leave the Beatles, and he goes home and he starts writing, and this is one of the first songs that he wrote directly after this. And the title from this album, or from this song, means both a guitar effects pedal and a headache. So keep that in mind. I've got the lyrics up here for you. Here's Walla. Another one. It's pretty direct. Again, no names are called out, or wishing anyone dead or anything, but pretty brutal. It's especially like I'm so glad that this documentary came out, because you can see the state he was in when he would go out and write these kind of songs. Another one much later. Oh, actually, interesting thing, we were talking about maybe why this might be one of the great Beatles solo albums. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the first the music industry's first triple album. I think it's the first that wasn't like a compilation of something else. But anyway, this next song, this supposedly is a reference to something Paul or John may have said about George's songwriting. But here's another one from All Things Must Pass, and then we'll go directly into another one after that. But here's a couple more. Another beautiful one there. There's so many good ones. Caleb, you were asking. This is the anniversary release. It does have. I'll show you. It's slightly technicolored, so it's just the greens. It's not the whole blues and the all the gnome colors and stuff. But that is what I'm spinning right now. So, the next song is the last song I'm gonna play from this album, sadly, but it is a good one. So, the title track from this album, All Things Must Pass. George, by the time George started writing this song, two major things happened in his life. One, the Beatles broke up, and two, his mother died. So this is kind of both of all of those emotions put into one song here. All Things Must Pass, and that includes the George Harrison section. Well, for the most part. And I bet you've all been wondering what has Ringo been up to during this whole time? Well, he's been helping out most of the other Beatles, but let's let him describe this time period. This next song was released in 1973, but it is written about this same exact time period. The song is early 1970, which is when Get Back was recorded, and when the Beatles broke up, essentially. So here is early 1970 from Ringo's first solo album. In the chat, Caleb, you mentioned that the drumming's kind of brutal. Do you mean like poor, or do you mean like heavy? Because I do feel like Ringo's an amazing drummer, but he does kind of suffer when he sings, and on in his solo career, he did a lot of singing here. This is such a fun little song. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. It just provides the beat. It doesn't serve the song. Yeah. It just sits there. That's true. But the song is really fascinating. Each verse is about a different one of the Beatles. So the first one is the most negative one, and it's about Paul, who the last line is, "I wonder if he'll play with me. He's doing all this stuff. I wonder if he'll play with me." This is like his Ram era, Yeah, not a ton of subtext exactly. Ringo, he's a direct kind of guy too. But Ringo, he was always kind of going along with the ride, just enjoying it, and he loved his friends, and he didn't want to get in too many quarrels. George Harrison plays on this song, interestingly enough. So the long-haired cross-legged guitar picker, he's picking on this song. That's another interesting thing. So yeah, he's very direct about it. And then another one on this album is kind of is him reminiscing on his whole time in the Beatles. So this is very interesting. I believe that's correct. That is also George on guitar. So, he did help Ringo out every now and then. Um, oh my, you know what? So regarding Larry, Phil and I spent about half an hour on the phone with Larry after, like immediately after that call, where he really kind of laid into it a little bit more. We recorded it. So you'll get to see that eventually, but it's unfiltered. It's Larry the Naked sessions. So um, I think you're right, Kara. I think John Lennon did write that song for Ringo, and he sang it. Which so it wasn't a full ego blast there. Um, so I did say the George section was over, but I should not have said that. I've kind of mixed all of them throughout, so no section is over. This next one came out the same year as that Ringo album. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's plenty more George to go. Don't worry. I'm sorry. So this next one, again, written about this same time when Paul was trying to dissolve the Apple Corporation. This is kind of about that very thing. So here is Sue Me, Sue You Blues. 80% silly love songs, 20% taxes and legal matters. Ryan. That's great. So the next year, again, there's not as much like back and forth between them, but they're still kind of writing songs and still processing it, especially Ringo. And this this next, yeah, 100% revenge, 80% silly love songs, 20% taxes and legal matters, 100% revenge. That's the tagline here. That's so good. This next song is another Ringo song from 1974. This phrase he kind of alluded to in that last song, but it was a phrase that Mark Bolan from T-Rex would always say, and he kind of picked up because they hung out a lot. And back off Boogaloo. So this is another one that Ringo. It's kind of he picked that phrase up, but this is kind of another one, maybe directed at Paul. So we'll dive into that. We get to a certain point where they're just continuing with their solo careers, and then in 1980, John Lennon is shot and murdered, and interestingly enough, the Mark David Chapman who shot him, I think, attributed a part of his reasoning to one of the lines in God, some of the anti Christian stuff. So I think that was a major sticky point for him, and it took them some time to process, but they each kind of took it to music. So we're going to start with Paul's coming to terms with John's death with the song from 1982, Here Today. Among Paul's 80s stuff, that's one of the songs I can tolerate. I love it. It's beautiful, but I think it's really interesting because as a tribute to John, it has that kind of old Beatles sound, like with the strings, the George Martin-esque strings, and I don't know if that was him, but it sounds very much like one of those kind of early Beatles songs. And this next one from George, all these years ago, it sounds like another one of those old Beatles songs that is more of a rock and roll song that John would have loved. And this is interesting because Ringo, Paul, and Linda are all on vocals here, and also Denny Lane from Wings, and then Al Cooper, who was on many session records, including Dylan and stuff. So let's do this one from Somewhere in England. Here's All Those Years Ago. Maybe a little proto Wilburys. Who knows? But a beautiful song, and from this point on, I feel like the remaining Beatles kind of were just very sentimental about their time in the Beatles. So I'm just gonna play a few here. One more from George, about 6 years later, and then a couple more from Ringo, and we got a few more songs here. But thank you for sticking around. Hope you're enjoying. Let's just keep going. Here is When We Was Fab, which, if you picked up on a few hints to some George Harrison songs, it's because that song was a tribute to George Harrison after his passing. Um, I think he passed in 2001, and this was Ringo with Eric Clapton on there, who was a longtime George Harrison friend as well. But after George passed, it was just Paul and John, and or oh no, sorry, Paul and Ringo, and we get a song in 2010 called "Walk with You." That is a kind of reflection on the whole Beatles saga with Ringo and Paul. Here we go. All right. Shout out to Phil for that last minute addition. That I didn't, to be honest, I didn't know that it existed until today. So thank you for thanks for that last minute addition. The next song I want to play is probably to this date the last time the Beatles kind of had a project together. This is from 1995. This is from Anthology, and to my knowledge, this is a John Lennon demo that the three remaining Beatles had worked on together with Jeff Lynne. So we'll go into this, and I have one more after that. So let's just go into this next one. This is Free as a Bird. Unfortunately, no, I do not have that on vinyl. I was playing that one from Spotify. That's tough to come by. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's come out to one of these B-Sides and Beatles events. We've put a lot of work into it. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you to Phil for helping out with Magical Mystery Show, and frankly, all of the shows. Providing extra vinyl. He lives downstairs and kind of not directly downstairs, but nearby. So thank you, Kara and Phil, for helping me put some of this together. Also, thank you to Vinyl Benji for doing the Beach Boys versus Beatles show. I don't want to thank Larry, but he's in this. And I also thank you to all of you for helping out and, joining in the chat and just hanging out and listening to some cool music. For those of you who are new to this, we do all kinds of shows. Check out the website. There's going to be more information. But I just have one more just to kind of thank you. That's essentially the end of the post-Beatles thing, but I have one more special thing. Just to kind of thank you guys. I really appreciate this. This is such a fun community. Reach out if you want to do a show with me on any kind of topic. We're going to be doing some fun ones in the new year, including a deeper dive into some solo Beatles work with Phil. We're going to be doing some things on all of the Beatles solo careers. So we're working on that. Some new Grateful Dead shows coming up maybe soon, and then we're going to be doing some more crate digs with some cool bands in the upcoming new year. So thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out. Ryan, you said it best. I think we've all got Beatles fever right now, and I just really appreciate all of the support and energy here, because I love the Beatles. We all love the Beatles. Except for Larry, and let's just kind of end it here. So thank you all, and let's get going.